So today we're going to be talking about Temposonics Flex Sensor because it's such an innovative new thing in the hydraulics world. Can you tell us what is the Flex Sensor? What makes it special?
Flex Sensor is a new product that Temposonics has designed to reduce downtime and ease of an interchangeability when a sensor is bad.
Fantastic. And where are these most commonly used with?
But what we're looking at here is what I'll call the legacy sensor. It is buried inside the cylinder, and this part right here is the head of the sensor where the electronics lie and do all the recording and reporting of the activity. This part right here, point to with a pencil, is the rod of the transducer. Okay, this is the rod of the cylinder right here that moves back and forth, and inside the piston of the cylinder is a magnet. So you can see that when the cylinder moves in and out, you can see how it goes up and down the rod of the transducer. It interacts with the waveguide, which is inside this rod, and the waveguide bounces the signal off of the electronics down to the magnet and measures the amount of time that it takes for the signal to get back, and therefore it is a completely non-contact sensor.
Now, Temposonics is kind of an industry standard, right?
It is. They have a high percentage of the market, and there are a lot of these in the field right now, and it's an ongoing process to try to make the maintenance of these particular type cylinders easier and better and quicker.
And why is that? Is it difficult to change a sensor now?
Well, it can be. It depends on the cylinder length of stroke. For example, if this particular cylinder was 6 feet long and it was mounted in a really tight place, then you would have to take the rear of the cylinder off, and then you would have to take the cylinder off and lay it in the floor and extract the cylinder or extract the rod from the cylinder to accommodate for the length of the stroke. And then you have to put it back in and reinstall the cylinder back. And some of these cylinders are huge. They're 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 bore cylinders. And it takes a crane to take them out of the machine sometimes. So having to replace the cylinder, if it's a large cylinder and a long stroke cylinder, can turn into a several day project sometimes.
Wow, a lot of labor.
Absolutely, no doubt.
How often does one have to be replaced?
It just depends on the vibration of the sensor, the temperature of the sensors exposed to. Some of these sensors have been in place for 7 or 8 years. Some of them last a couple of years. It just depends on the environment that they're living in.
Fantastic. So Temposonics went back to the drawing board and said, we got to do something new, right? Because this is too hard to replace. What did they do?
Well, they have devised what we call the Flex Sensor, and that's what this is. Now, I mentioned a minute ago that inside this rod is what's called a waveguide. And so, again, going back to how the sensor works, the electronics shoot a signal down the waveguide inside this rod, and the cylinder bounces off of the magnet on the piston, and it comes back up the waveguide, and the electronics measure the time it takes to do that. So the situation with this is, what was the question?
How do we make this so that it's easier to install?
Okay, all right. So the idea is to not have to take the cylinder out to have it to replace the Temposonic 1. And so the best way to do that is with the Flex Sensor. So we should talk about how we convert from the legacy sensor to the Flex Sensor and how easy it is to do that. So the first step in the process is you give us a call and you tell us the sensor number that you got, and we'll cross that sensor over to the Flex Sensor, and it's a drop-in replacement as far as electronics goes and everything. It's no change in its performance, there's no change in anything. But it does have a different part number. So we take the old cylinder out and take it apart and extract the legacy transducer out. And when we do that, it looks like this when it comes out, okay? And when you replace this, in the past, you have to replace the entire rod of the transducer. Now, what we're going to do in the future is be able to take these two screws out in the rear of this. There's 4 screws back here in the legacy sensor, and you can take 2 of them out and you expose the electronics like this. But you don't want to do that, okay?
That's bad.
Well, you can lose screws, lose parts. I mean, it's not unrecoverable, but it's better to do it right to start with. So the other 2 screws actually hold the plate here onto the barrel. And so when you take those 2 screws out, you're able to extract this out of the rod, and you see, this is what you see inside. This is the waveguide right here, and this is the waveguide cover, okay? So you extract that out, but you leave the rod in because the rod screws in. And prior to the flex sensor, when you took the old one out, you unscrewed it off of these threads and backed it out. And then when you got the new sensor in, it came with a new rod and you just screwed it right back in place. So in this circumstance, you're gonna leave the rod in there, and when you get the flex sensor in, it's gonna look like this. And you just stick it right in the back of the rod here, and those 2 screws that you used to undo it will go back into this, and it'll bolt right up, and you'll wind up with something that looks like this inside. Now I cut this rod off so you can see how the flex sensor sits inside the rod. You don't have this cover anymore, and you don't have this particular waveguide. So once you do that, and the next time the Temposonic needs to be replaced, then you take those 2 screws out, and you just take this out, put it right back in, put the 2 screws in.
So you were saying previously, some of these things can be 6 feet long, right?
Easy.
And that means you have to take all of this apart, put it to the side, put this back in. So when you're putting a flex sensor in, what's the difference? Do you still have to take all of this apart?
Well, not after the first installation. If you've got a 6-foot long cylinder, okay, then, and you already have the flex sensor installed, then it's a matter of taking those 2 screws off. And when you take the sensor out, you can take it out in this manner rather than having to take it out this way, because this is not bendable, obviously, and this is. And it has a very good bend radius to it. So you can run that flex sensor in and out right there, and more times than not, you've got enough room in the back here to be able to get this sensor in without having to take the whole cylinder off the machine.
Fantastic. So it's got to be saving labor, right?
Oh, there's no question about it. If some of these cylinders could be 8-10 inch bore cylinder, you have to have a crane to take them out off the machine. And that's very labor intensive, very time consuming, and very much a day or 2 proposition just to change the sensor out. So that's the biggest difference right there, because it's flex and you don't have to go through all of that to get the sensor out.
Absolutely. It also comes to you a better packaged, huh?
Absolutely. When these things ship, and that's part of I'm glad you brought that up, because that's part of the first question people ask is the cost. What is the cost? Well, the actual cost of the flex sensor is probably 12 to 13% more than the legacy sensor. And some people say, well, I'd rather not spend that money. But what they don't realize, especially if it's a long stroke cylinder, you can spend $300, $400, $500 in shipping costs, because packing this thing up in a manner that it doesn't get damaged is very expensive, and many times it does get damaged, and you have to go through having to order another one and file a claim with the UPS and all the people or whoever's delivering it. And you add all that into the overall picture, 12 to 13% is probably less than what you're gonna pay with all the other issues that arise through this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And once you do it once, you can always do it
That's
in
it.
clinic if you save all that.
That's
So
it.
that's wonderful. So how do they get one?
Well, you need to call us and give us the part number of the sensor that's in here, and we will do the crossover for you. We'll give you a new part number so you can order the new sensor. And when the new sensor comes in, it's gonna be coiled up in a box. It looks something similar to a pizza box. Some of them are a little bigger if you got long strokes and a lot of loops in here, but when you get the sensor, you can take a shot at trying to do this yourself, or you can ask us to come out and do it with you, or show you how to do it, or train your people, or whatever that you want to do. But once you get it done one time, that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. Well, that's Hydrick on hydraulics right here, and we're glad to talk to you. Thanks for watching us at Flow Dynamics.